evening and welcome. It is time once again for CU Immigration here on WRFU LP Urbana 104.5 FM and UPTV. I will be your host for this evening. My name is Mr. Garza, and I'm here to let you know that I will be your host for this evening. My name is Mr. Garza, and I am here to let you know that WRFU is an open forum for the Urbana-Champaign community. Views expressed are those of the speakers and are not intended to represent WRFU, UCIMC, or UPTV. These views are our own, and by our in this instance I mean myself and whomever's views may leak through the news stories that I read to you, because the views are embedded in there somewhere. People have views, and when they write something, those views kind of creep into their writing. So there will be a little bit of that kind of viewing going on, but those are inadvertent, and you can't blame them because you don't know them, so just blame me. And not that you know me necessarily, but if you did know me, you could blame me. And if you don't know me, you can blame me from a distance. I'm fine with that. I can handle it. Anyway, we're back with more stuff about immigration. First thing is really short. It's just a kind of interesting little bit entitled USPS Employee Charged with Throwing Out Key Immigration Documents. A U.S. Postal Service employee faces jail time after allegedly throwing out critical immigration documents. Diana Molyneux is being prosecuted in a federal court in Utah for discarding or delaying mail at a Salt Lake City post office. Those mail pieces went missing starting in 2017, and the consequences were dire for the expected recipients, affecting people in Nevada who were waiting on green cards and other important immigration documents. The Nevada Independent, which first reported this story, found that some lost jobs, others paid up to $1,000 to get new applications. Some individuals who had applied to become part of the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program also lost paperwork or applications, leaving these dreamers in legal limbo. That DACA program could help them get jobs and pauses their undocumented legal status. Timing was critical because in late 2017, new applications were halted by the Trump administration. Malu Chavez is Deputy Director for the Northwest Immigrants' Rights Project. She says if applicants didn't meet the critical 2017 deadline, they're likely still waiting. That's even after a recent U.S. Supreme Court win for the DACA program, because she said that only granted renewals, not new applications. Those are the people now who are hurting the most, she said. She cautioned those who were unable to get DACA status, and even those who were, to seek legal advice from attorneys who know immigration law to seek more permanent solutions. Employees found guilty of stealing, opening, or destroying mail face up to $2,000 fine and or 5 years in prison. So that is a really unfortunate event. So a while back, I don't remember how far back it is. It's confusing because the TV version of this show and the radio version of the show run on different timelines, because the radio show is an hour long and the TV is a half an hour. So my video versions, each single show ends up being two separate shows. So I am like way ahead radio-wise and way behind TV-wise, and I don't even know where I am in some senses with this stuff. But a while back, we'll just leave it at that, we talked about the Netflix documentary Immigration Nation, which had a pretty profound effect on a lot of people. And this is a follow-up story about how that is going, or how that went. And it's entitled Filmmaker Addresses Response to Her Netflix Documentary, Immigration Nation. Growing up in Grand Rapids, Minnesota, gave Christina Clouseau a fairly isolated view of the world. The filmmaker is now making up for lost opportunities. Netflix's Immigration Nation explores the current state of American immigration, a mission that sent Clouseau and her co-director Shaul Schwartz, boy, that's hard to say, Shaul Schwartz, scrambling to locations across the hemisphere, including El Paso, Texas, Panama City, Florida, and Guatemala. Panama City. Okay, yes, that was right. Panama City, Florida, and Guatemala. The punctuation is a bit weird here, but I'm figuring it out. Anyway, coming from a place without a lot of diversity made me curious about understanding and diving into worlds I didn't know much about, Clouseau said this month by phone from her home in New York. And as an editorial aside, I don't exactly know if I'm pronouncing her name correctly. It is spelled Clusiau. Clouseau? I'm going to pronounce it Clouseau, like Inspector Clouseau from the Pink Panther movies, because it looks like it could be pronounced that way, and I will at least get that right, even if it's wrong, if that makes sense. What separates her 6-part series from other documentaries on the same subject is how it tackles the hot-button issue from various perspectives, notably ones from employees of U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Since the project debuted this month, much has been made of scenes in which certain agents round up people living in the U.S. illegally with the glee of cowboys roping up stray cattle. But the directors also spotlight agents who show compassion for those being arrested. The team's requests to be embedded with ICE date back to the Obama administration, which turned them down. But the directors were pleasantly surprised to get the green light shortly after President Donald Trump came into office. I think they wanted to show how unique and incredible these people were, said Schwartz, who was engaged to Clouseau. Never in a million years did I think it would wind up being so intense. The administration appears to have regretted its decision. In July, ICE officials tried unsuccessfully to block the film's release until after the presidential election. Quote, "The men and women of ICE perform outstanding work daily that often goes unnoticed or is misrepresented to the point of falsehood," ICE Press Secretary Jenny Burke wrote in a public statement. ICE is firmly committed to carrying out the agency's sworn duty to enforce federal law as passed by Congress professionally, consistently, and in full compliance with federal law and agency policies. And as an editorial aside, I will add, and we don't like it when you show that we're not actually doing that, which is what a lot of this series did in fact show. Anyway, Schwartz admits he was somewhat slightly surprised by the amount of anger that has come from certain ICE agents. But that's okay, he said. I do hope viewers remember that they have a very difficult job. Any policing is a hard job, but especially one that had to shift so quickly under political pressure. And they're ICE officers that... And they are? They are? Oh. I'll try to fix this. This is a typo. Are there ICE officers that took the temperature of the country and got more emboldened? Absolutely. Is that all ICE is? No. There are a lot of good officers there. Maybe. The controversy has given the film tons of free publicity, but it also threatens to downplay nations' other powerful moments, ones that show the impact of zero-tolerance policy on the immigrants themselves. There are several harrowing scenes of parents being separated from their children at detention centers. An ex-Marine, deported after being convicted of a minor crime, pleads his case to a court clerk through tears. A businessman takes advantage of workers without legal status by refusing to pay for their work. There's the initial shock of seeing how ICE operates, said Clouseau, who dedicated 3 years to the project, but our hope is, in the long run, people will also be drawn to the stories of the human toll on individuals. Clouseau, or Clouseau, a former Time magazine photojournalist, is no stranger to tackling controversial issues. Trophy, the 2017 film she also co-directed with Schwartz, took an unflinching look at big game hunting and conservation. The couple are currently wrapping up a documentary on wingsuit jumping, one of the world's most dangerous activities, through their production company Real Peak Films. But Nation may end up being the most buzzed about project of their careers. We're really amazed by the reach the series has had across the board, Clouseau said. There's been a little bit of anger, but we've also seen a lot of organizations and people reaching out to offer support. It's a hard series to watch, but hopefully it becomes a vehicle for change. So, an update. All right. So, as long as we're on the subject of immigration, which is the topic of this show, how about a review of Trump immigration policy? Yeah. Okay. So at the Republican National Convention, Donald Trump and his supporters have given the impression that Trump administration policy, while tough on illegal immigrants, has been welcoming to legal immigrants, people trying to come to America to become American citizens and refugees fleeing government persecution. Below is a review of Trump administration policies on legal immigration from 2017 to the present. Legal immigration cut in half, most categories blocked. By 2021, Donald Trump will have reduced legal immigration by 49% since becoming president, without any change in U.S. immigration law, according to a National Foundation for American Policy analysis. An April presidential proclamation blocked the entry of legal immigrants to the United States in almost all categories. Reducing legal immigration most harms refugees, employers, and Americans who want to live with their spouses, parents, or children, but it also affects the country's future labor force and economic growth. Average annual labor force growth, a key component of the nation's economic growth, will be approximately 59% lower as a result of the administration's immigration policies, if the policies continue, according to the National Foundation for American Policy. And let me make another editorial aside here. As I've said frequently and regularly, probably even as recently as last week, I like to resist describing immigration problems and situations and immigrants themselves in financial terms, because I think that dehumanizes everybody. So let's say a study was done and it confirmed that immigrants created a net drag on the economy by, say, 0.1% or something like that. Then people would, if all you do is think of them of immigrants, in terms of how they affect us financially, you go, oh, well, immigration is bad then. And it makes it easy for people to misapply statistics, to mischaracterize things that they read, and to basically use the economy as a cudgel, or at least as a point of confusion, so that if you're sort of naturally tending to be kind of nativist and sort of slightly xenophobic, it's really easy to kind of push you that last little bit and say, yeah, but the immigrants are costing this or that. And then you go, oh, well, in that case, I'm totally against it, instead of just being slightly against it. So I like to, in this show, it tries to humanize immigrants so that you are starting to think about different immigrants as people who are moving here from other places. And there are lots of different people who come from lots of different places, who have lots of different stories and backgrounds, and all sorts of different aspects to them that make them difficult to categorize as just a single group. They're immigrants only because they share this one attribute, in that they came here from somewhere else. But beyond that, their stories differ quite a bit. There are some similarities that come out of the immigrant experience, the naturalization experience, the search for a green card, the trying to deal with being in a new place with a new language, new customs, all those sorts of things. But basically, there are lots of different stories for lots of different people from lots of different places. And that's what immigration is about. So it is important for us when we hear all these various different points being made by people on different sides of the issue to keep in mind that by and large, what most of us on the pro-immigrant side are talking about are the commonalities, are the things that make their experiences similar. All these different people, all these different personal stories, the things that make their situation similar, dealing with the immigration system, being villainized and dehumanized by the administration, and so on. That's what we're talking about when we put them in the group of immigrants. That's what I'm talking about when I say they or immigrants. I am talking about the few things that are consistent across the board in their effect on immigrants. They don't, let me rephrase that. It doesn't affect everybody in the same way. If you come here, highly skilled person, a lot of money with you, your experience is going to be very different than if you hiked across the border with all your stuff in a plastic bag. Even though it may be the same, dealing with the same system and being looked at in the same way by a lot of people, it still has a different effect. So you're dealing with the same general types of problems, but how it affects you is very different. So that's what we're talking about. What on the other side, the Trump side of the equation, there's a tendency to just lump everybody together. And that's kind of what we're seeing here in this story about legal immigrants. They, at the convention, if you watched any part of that, and I could not stomach very much of it, but you saw that they played up there like, oh, well, we welcome legal immigrants, but they don't. And that's what this story is about. They are very much not welcoming legal immigrants. They're treating all immigrants as being someone that you shouldn't want here. And the importance of this story is to understand that, as usual, they're pretending that they're doing one thing and they are actually doing something else altogether. Not unusual for this administration. So I will jump back into that. But be aware that even though a lot of this is talking about financial things related to finances, related to immigration, and there are several stories like that here that we'll be looking at, that I don't like lumping the question around immigration under finances only. I think that is a point. It's something worth considering, but it is only one of many points that should be considered. So, having said that, I will move on. So, 59% lower growth, economic growth, if current policies continue. Okay. The most highly skilled foreign-born blocked or denied at high rates. The denial rate on new H-1B petitions for high-skilled foreign nationals has increased from 6% in federal year 2015 to 30% in federal year 2020. A June 2020 presidential proclamation suspended the entry of foreign nationals on H-1B and L-1 intracompany transferees visas. We talked about this last week. As reported in August, today even the most highly skilled individuals in the world cannot enter America under the Trump administration's immigration policy. Reports from attorneys and a statement from the State Department confirm that U.S. consular officers in Europe are denying O-1 visas for individuals with extraordinary ability based on a health pretext. Refugees and asylum seekers, including from Venezuela, deny. At least one speaker at the convention discussed the protection Americans once offered Cuban refugees and spoke sympathetically about the victims of Venezuela's socialist government. For federal year 2020, the Trump administration established an annual ceiling for refugees 84% lower than the final year of the Obama administration, from 110,000 down to 18,000. As of July 17, 2020, only 7,848 refugees have arrived in the United States in federal year 2020. As of December 2019, 24,451 Venezuelans were in U.S. immigration court facing removal, an increase of 277% from 6,492 in September 2018, according to the Syracuse University Transactional Records Access Clearinghouse, or TRAC. Rather than make things easier for fleeing Venezuelans, the Trump administration has tightened asylum standards, according to Miami New Times reporter Manuel Madrid, who writes that many Venezuelans consider being deported to Venezuela to be a death sentence. Despite pleas from religious leaders, the administration has not designated Venezuelans for temporary protected status and has continued to deport people back to Venezuela. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, removed more than 900 people to Venezuela between 2017 and 2019. In federal year 2016, the last full year of the Obama administration, 182 Venezuelans were removed, compared to 327 in federal year 2019 under the Trump administration, an 80% increase. Asylum seekers from Cuba, Venezuela, and Central America who try to enter the United States and apply for asylum would be unlikely to obtain a hearing under current administration policies at the U.S. border. New asylum regulations also make it difficult for those fleeing persecution to be approved if they receive a hearing. A significant increase in denials for military naturalizations. The denial rate for military naturalizations increased from 7% in 2016 to 17% in 2019, a 143% increase in the denial rate, according to a National Foundation for American Policy analysis. Due to policy decisions between 2016 and 2019, the number of immigrants in the military who naturalized dropped by 54%, from 8,606 in 2016 to 3,987 in 2019. On August 25, 2020, the same day a naturalization ceremony was held at the White House, a federal court ruled against the Trump administration's efforts to make it more difficult for active duty service members to become American citizens. A federal court today ruled that the Trump administration's policy of depriving military service members of an expedited path to citizenship is unlawful, reported the American Civil Liberties Union. The ruling comes in a lawsuit, Sama versus U.S. Department of Defense, filed by the ACLU on behalf of 8 non-citizen U.S. service members who represent a class of thousands in uniform. Naturalization slowed and ceremonies stopped for many applicants. The 5 people who received naturalization at the White House on August 25, 2020, during the Republican National Convention, I'll point out, were fortunate. Over 100,000 immigrants have been waiting to become U.S. citizens due to administration policies. In March, in response to the coronavirus pandemic, U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, or USCIS, closed offices and for months would not provide alternative methods for completing the citizenship process, such as administering oaths virtually or incorporating social distancing in naturalization ceremonies. While naturalization ceremonies slowly came back, it is likely many immigrants will not be citizens in time to vote in the November election, due in part to long delays in processing. See also this report from Boundless, which has estimated as many as 300,000 immigrants may not gain citizenship before November. Okay, Boundless is, this is a link, and I should have deleted that because you can't go on. You can't see it. Anyway. On August 3, 2020, the administration significantly increased the fees for immigrants to become American citizens, increasing the cost of the application, N-400, to become a U.S. citizen by more than 80%, from $640 to $1,160 for online filers, although a separate $85 biometrics fee would be eliminated. Some have wondered about the Trump campaign's motivations for presenting a picture of its immigration policies that differs from the policies the administration implemented over the past 3.5 years. The Washington Post's fact-checker Glenn Kessler asked, Wouldn't a speech by Stephen Miller at this point better reflect the president's immigration policies in the past 3 years than this naturalization ceremony? Washington Post columnist Catherine Rampell replied, "Exactly. If Trump's anti-immigration agenda is so great, why not defend it on the merits? Why misrepresent it, what it actually does, by pretending Trump welcomes political refugees and newly naturalized immigrants?" I think we don't have to ask that question. It's pretty obvious. This administration is not known for being honest or forthright or for doing things in an open and transparent way. They are the most duplicitous and the least transparent of any administration ever that I am aware of. I don't even know what to say except that it's profoundly disturbing. But that at least gives you a sense of what they are actually doing, what they have been actually doing, and so on. So let's look at some facts on U.S. immigrants from 2018. This is an older piece, but this will give you some ideas. So, statistical portrait of the foreign-born population in the United States. There were a record 44.8 million immigrants living in the U.S. in 2018, making up 13.7% of the nation's population. This represents a more than fourfold increase since 1960, when 9.7 million immigrants lived in the U.S., accounting for 5.4% of the total U.S. population. So, foreign-born population, 1850 to 2018. The foreign-born population residing in the U.S. reached a record 44.8 million, or 13.7% of the U.S. population in 2018. This immigrant population has more than quadrupled since the 1960s, when the 1965 Immigration and Naturalization Act took effect. Though growth has begun to slow in recent years, the number of immigrants living in the United States is projected to almost double by 2065. The age structure of the U.S. immigrant population has changed alongside the changing immigrant origin regions. As the largest group of immigrants shifted from Europeans, Canadians, and other North Americans to Mexicans, the largest age group moved from ages 65 to 69 in 1960 to ages 40 to 44 in 2018. Today, European, Canadian, and other North American immigrants tend to be older, with a median age of 53 and 54 respectively in 2018. Mexican immigrants are among the youngest, with a median age of 43. The age distribution of the U.S.-born population has also transformed. In 1960, toward the end of the baby boom, the population was younger than in 2018, when the age groups were much more evenly dispersed. Origin regions. The regions of origin for immigration populations residing in the U.S. have dramatically shifted since the passage of the 1965 Immigration and Naturalization Act. In 1960, 84% of immigrants living in the U.S. were born in Europe, Canada, or other North American countries.